you'll want to join us in this episode. In this episode, we're going to tear out all of the rubber flooring. We're going to start the process of using the grinder to remove all the adhesive and rust off the floors. We'll have a breakdown and tell you where we're at total wise, money wise so far into this project. But it's rewarding, guys. If you're thinking about getting into a school or you just bought one and you're a little overwhelmed getting started, all I can say is get started. We're going to have a breakdown. You'll see some of the tools we use. We had to remove one seat that was left in the bus, so we'll show you how we got that seat out as one person instead of two. We got the wheelchair lift out of the bus. The camera kind of cut off right when I was tossing it out of the bus, so I don't have footage of that, but I unbolted it, slid it over, and threw it out the back. And that's the end of that. So now we've got the rubber mats out, and we're starting to clean the floors. We got the insulation off, how to remove the side panels, how to get rivets out. So this is going to be a good episode. Join us on this one. Let's get this thing done. Hey, all right, I just took the camera box off. Back at it again. It's Monday evening. Just spent 11 hours on my day job. Thought I'd come home this evening. What I want to do this evening, I'm not going to do a whole lot, but I want to get this panel off, get the fan disconnected, get this panel off, and then I've got to drill the rivets out of this panel so that I can get all this apart. Probably what I didn't show you yesterday is when this whole panel, which is the whole length of the bus, was held by a screw that was hidden up under here. When we tried to take it out, that's the one screw that stripped. So it was the one screw that held the whole project up, and we ended up taking a crowbar and prying and taking a chisel and cutting that one screw off to get that whole panel out. It fell in the back, but it would not come loose from the front. So what I want to do this evening is work on this other side and get that panel out and see if I can get those screws in behind carefully out of there, so that when we take the rest of these screws out, we'll be ready to go and get the ceiling out, get the insulation out of that side. So as this week goes on, coming home from work in the evening, we'll work a little bit here and there to get some things done. We're going to get the walls taken out, get the floor taken up. Interestingly enough, ours doesn't have plywood under the rubber. The rubber is molded right down to the metal. The little piece I took up in the back, it looks like there's a little surface rust around that door. So hopefully that's the extent of that. We'll wire brush all that up, treat it before we rust all the out. Then we're ready to start running wires and hooking things up. So let me get this out. Well, that's that. I got all the screws out up here. There were a couple in there that were a little rusty from condensation that scared me that they would end up like that one yesterday. Ended up having to take the winky light out, the red winky light, to get in there to get that final screw. But I got those out, and I got 90% of the screws out of this upper panel all the way to the back of the bus. A couple of them stripped, so we'll cut grooves in those. But it's getting dark, and we've got like 2 years to build this bus. So we're not going to push it this evening. Tomorrow evening we'll probably come in, cut slits in those and take them out, drop that down and get the insulation out. Spend the rest of this week, because you know we work 11 hours a day at the real job, so we'll spend the rest of this week just doing little things. And then we've got to take the side panels out, which is a lot of rivets. So, good morning. We're back here in Tango Romeo, which is what we've decided to name the bus, Tango Romeo 87. It kind of comes from Tracy and Rob, and in the military fanatic, Tango Romeo. So the bus will be named Tango Romeo 87. As you can see, our channel has been changed already. The last time I checked in with you was Tuesday. We did a little work after work every evening. Working 11 hours a day on the real job doesn't leave a lot of time through the week to work on the bus. But we did manage to get all the side panels off on this side. get all the insulation out, get that cleaned out. We found a little bit of rust down on one of the panels back of the wheel well. Nothing serious. It was something that we could scrape out, clean up, vacuum, and then we'll put a rust inhibitor down in all of that before we re-insulate with rock wool. Today, I've got to get this last seat out. We left this one in for transportation, but I'm going to take it out today, and then we'll take this other side panel out and get the insulation out of that, and then we're done removing metal from the bus. The entire ceiling's out, side panels on the left side are out, and we'll get the side panels on the right out and get that cleaned up. I've got a guy who's going to pick the metal up. He recycles and he can use it. So I'll get started getting this seat out now, and after we get all of that out, I've got to still take the wheelchair lift out of the back of the bus, unmount it, figure out how to bypass the safety on it so the bus will still start, and then we'll strip the floors out. Interesting enough, I think I've mentioned before, there's no plywood under our rubber matting. Our rubber matting is glued directly to the metal floor. Little tiny bit of rust in the back, near the back door where we took a small section up, but it's surface rust. We should be able to wire wheel it up, sand it, and rust inhibit it, and then we'll get Rust-Oleum in. Okay, so once we get past this phase, then we'll start on all the wiring that we're going to add and get the rails up, because I want to put the rails up for the solar panels prior to putting any ceiling in. That way if I have any leaks, they're easy to identify prior to putting the ceiling in. A lot of people make that mistake. Don't do it. Anything you're going to screw and mount to the roof, make sure it's screwed and mounted to the roof. Check for water leaks before you put a ceiling in. So let's get started removing the seats and get this done today. Okay, the bolts that go in the outside near the aisle on the seats, people ask about this frequently. They just turn freely. There's a nut on the bottom side of the bus, so if you don't have two people, one to go down there under and lay on the ground and find that nut and hold it, then you've got to cut them off. I saw a post here recently by somebody said it took all day to grind one off. Don't use a grinding wheel. When you're using your grinder, use a thin cutoff wheel. Now I use a Ryobi 1. This whole bus will be built with Ryobi 1. I use a Ryobi 1 18 volt grinder. Just simply get on the bolt and cut it off. And then the bolt's cut off. So we'll cut all 4 of those off, clean them up, and pull the seat out. Okay, we're getting ready to take the last sidewall panel out. I got to first say, if you hear Tracy and I sniffling and hacking, it's not because we have the dreaded thing or even a cold. In North Carolina, about this time of year, we measure pollen like you measure snowfall. Everything here is yellow. It's covered in pollen. It just, if you don't clean it up every day, it starts to layer up like yellow snow. And that is from the pine trees.
Right.
They let loose and the wind blows one day and it just covers everything. Every car is yellow.
Yep.
And my bus will blend in and look exactly like every car in Brunswick County. So we're going to get this wall taken out. This is another one of these walls with 1,000,000 screws all along. The unique thing about this older Wayne bus, this is a 91 model, is these weird little rivets that they put in the centers right here and here. As you can see right here in the close-up, there's no way to put a drill on that and catch it and drill it out, because it's round, it could slip and the drill bit go right through the window. So you have to take a grinder and cut all of those off, and then this is crimped in. So these aren't real easy, but I'll show you in detail how to get these off if you have a bus like this. Tracy's going to go ahead and get started taking all the screws out, and then I'll come along once she's safely away and I can't set her hair on fire with the grinder, and I'll grind these off. And then you actually have to get angry with this and yank it off there so you can get that crimp off. I found that out because I got angry with it when it wouldn't come off, and it turned out angry was the right way. So she's going to get started on these screws now.
I'm also going to be removing this black I don't know what you call it, molding, that's holding down the floor. It's just a regular Phillips head screw bit. I ain't gonna strip it.
Looks like grinder.
No, it's still good.
When we get it.
I'm gonna have to go get our bucket.
Yay! That's one I didn't strip.
All right.
I've got a little more weight to lay into it than Tracy. It looks like a cracked syringe. You never know what you find in the bus.
Yeah, I know.
The only way to get these out, because if you try to drill on this rounded area, the drill just is going to skip up and you're going to eat a piece of glass. So I just simply grind them off. Now that they're ground off, this is pinched over, it comes up and then it goes back into a groove on the window. We'll show you that groove in a minute. It's just a matter of getting this thing pulled off. You got to get them cut all the way. You have to pull the whole length and bend it back and pull at the same time. So I'm gonna go up through here and grind the rest of these off and drill out the rivets that are back by the wheelchair lift, and we'll be ready to take this panel out and pull the insulation. So we got the rivets out. I think we'll show a close-up of drilling one. Okay, so your rivet head's there. Your drill bit is roughly the size of the shaft behind it. Doesn't need to be as big as the head. You want a good drill bit like a cobalt or zirconium nitrate that doesn't drill or doesn't dull easy. So just line up with the hole in the center, push and drill. And like that, you've got a rivet out. We've got all of our rivets ground off here, the rivets out of the end, and every screw out of this. So to get this out, and this is a Wayne bus, like I said, 91, that metal goes up and bends over crimp. So you kind of got to get angry, pull it all up, kind of bend it a little bit, and then pull it out. I don't know if you can see this, but it's lipped over here. Sets in the groove there. So you kind of got to get it all out, pull it up, and pull it out. At any rate, that's out. Now we get the insulation. Out of here, we'll vacuum all the debris up, check for rust down in the hidden areas, and pretty much now we take the floors out and the destruction of the interior of the bus will be done. I'm getting ready to remove the insulation from the sides of the bus. This is the last insulation we have. There may be one little tiny piece up in that corner that I'll take out later. But this is primarily the old fiberglass that's in the bus. It's old. This is a 91 model bus, so we're looking at a bus that's 30 years old. Need to use a little caution getting it out. I don't see any mold or anything on it, but they did spray a black adhesive to the back of it. At the very least, when you start messing with insulation and things like that, you should wear an N95 mask. I have a bunch of these around. They would have been in high demand a few months ago, but they were in my workshop. You make sure that you cross the straps correctly when you put it on, and that you get the majority. An N95 mask will filter way better than the little mask we're wearing for the pandemic. I'll put the mask on and then I'll start pulling this out. And once I pull it off, I scrape it with a scraper, and then I take a shop vac and vacuum the last little bit of Klingon material that's on there so that you get a nice smooth finish. So I'll get started on this, get the insulation out, then I've got to get the wheelchair lift out, and then I'm going to take the floors up. So we've had this bus exactly a week. We drove it home last Saturday. Today is Saturday. We started working some on it Sunday, and then we put an hour or so in it every evening after work to get to the point we're at. When we walk out of this bus this evening at dark, the destruction of the bus, the demolition will be 99% complete. Be a few little things we take off here and there to do things, but the floors will be out. We'll be ready to start taking a wire brush to this tomorrow and getting the floors prepped and ready, and then we'll get them treated and we'll get a Rust-Oleum paint down, and then we're ready to start the wiring projects on the bus. So we're moving along at pretty good speed. It'll slow down when we start having to pour money into it. Solar panels, batteries, inverters, the water system, all that will slow us down some. But we'll get some of the plywood components. I'm not buying any pre-made cabinets or fixtures for this. I'll get my table saw out and we'll hand make every cabinet that goes in this bus. So it's going to be kind of fun to follow along. You'll want to subscribe to the channel and make sure that you click the notification, because we'll try to post about once a week. We're also work full time, 11 hours a day. Tracy's out there in our garden right now planting, so we'll have a garden. We're using the bus as a hurricane escape, a getaway in case a hurricane comes, where we don't have to go rent a motel room, and some nasty motel rooms usually all you get because they book quickly. And I don't like renting my motel rooms by the hour. I don't know about you, so we'll make the bus capable of that. We'll use it for some vacation time to hit some areas in North Carolina, and eventually as we get a little bit older, we'll probably hit the road full time and travel the country, go out west and see all those great places like Bryce Canyon that people show. But for now, the bus is a temporary getaway. Wow, there goes a real nice shuttle bus down the road. Wow. Have you ever noticed that after you buy a bus, you notice every bus out there and you're thinking, wow, what I could do with that? But we decided on this 28-foot bus so that we could pull the car behind it and have room. So it's going to be a tight squeeze, but I've got a plan. It's going to be neat to watch it come along. So let me start getting this insulation out of here and get done with that, and then that's the nasty of it. I can get this jacket off. It's warming up today. Okay, I don't know how well you can hear me with the N95 mask on. I've got a good seal on this mask. Now I've got all that pulled out and you can see there's still some clinging on. I'll use this scraper to go along and scrape each section to get the big part out, and then we'll take a shop vac and clean up the rest of it. There's a very sticky material that they spray on here that helps that to here. And that's what you're trying to get this loose from. Okay, I swore that I'd never say okay to start a segment again, so take that away. Alright, the insulation has been pulled, the paint scraper work is done, and now it's time to use the vacuum. We have a handy little vacuum that we got years ago at a Dirty Santa, where if you don't like your present, you steal the next one. We stole this. This has been,
Oh my gosh.
10 years ago?
10 years ago.
15 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
So vacuum is great. Doesn't pull a lot of power, even though we're on shore power at this point. So Tracy's going to get these vacuumed out, and you'll see that gets rid of all the last little bit of Klingon, allows you to get down in the bottom where any might have fell into that cavern. So I'll let her get started on this, and after we're done with that, we're going to take the wheelchair lift out. Got all of the insulation vacuumed out of the sidewalls. I went under the bus while Tracy was finishing up the vacuum job, and there were 6 bolts that came through. They were carriage bolts. Just took a socket extension on my drill and took the 6 bolts out, and we flipped the wheelchair lift over on its side on the floor, and now I don't know that there's enough manpower on planet Earth to move it again. So that's become a big problem. It's kind of laying there, and it's in the way of us doing anything at the back of the bus until we figure out what to do. For now, I'm going to go ahead and take the floor up. There's a square plate for anybody who doesn't know. I'll get Tracy to point to it. There's a square plate, and it's in almost every single bus. That is an access port to get to your fuel sending unit on your diesel tank. When you take the floors up, save the screws and save that, because you'll want to put that back. If you ever get to a point where you've got nice floors in your bus and the sending unit goes bad, you'll pay a diesel technician to drain and drop that tank in order to change it, whereas they could just remove this plate and put a new one in. So we're going to get these floors up now, and hopefully they come up as easy as the back did. We might get the crowbar and start working on that a little bit. Comes up fairly easy. You know, the glue's 30 years old, and I think it's a difference where it's glued to the metal and not to the plywood. It makes it a whole lot better.
We've got most of the flooring out, except for a little bit on this side behind the driver's seat, and including the driver's seat. That's going to require a little bit of work.
Well, I kind of am going to do the cockpit later. Right now I'm going to leave the cockpit alone, and because I've got a lot of things to do up there with the switch panels and paint, but I'm going to do the main house back.
Yeah, we ran into a little bit of rust on the floor itself. Just surface rust. We're going to run to Home Depot and go and get respirators and another wire brush. We're going to use grinders and just grind it down and clean it up real good.
Yeah, it looks like that coarse wire brush that we're using. I'll get it. It's taking what little bit of adhesive we've got up, and also it's going to take the rust out. We're using a coarse brush at this point. I don't know if you can see it well there or not.
Yeah, I think
we've got fine brushes too, and once we get all of the rust roughed up, then we'll come back through with orbital sanders and belt sanders and sand everything before we prime it. But I'm with Tracy. I think we still got this problem with this wheelchair lift, and if the two of us try to lift this and put it in the tractor, we're going to need to put it back in the bus for our wheelchairs because it's going to break us. That thing is heavy.
It's very heavy.
I don't know why buses don't lean when that's sitting on the corner of them.
Yeah.
But I'm real happy with what we're seeing under the floors. So I hope that y'all have learned a little bit of something on how to tear your bus apart, because that's the point of our channel at this point, is step by step by step.
Yep.
And we're not sponsored. If we were, we would be sponsored by a company that paints their stuff green. Because I'm a big fan.
Ryobi one.
You know, I have so many tools that do every job, and I don't have to drag cords around these 18-volt batteries, 4 amp hour, or an all-day battery. So let's run to Home Depot.
Okay.
And look, Eddie.
Hi, Eddie.
Eddie's still terrified of the bus.
Yeah, he won't come on the bus.
Come on. Come on, buddy.
Get out of the way and you can probably see him in the doorway. Hey, Eddie.
Eddie?
How you doing?
Come on.
Come here. Come here, bud.
You're doing good. You're up one step. You're going to live in this bus. Don't look at me like that. Okay, guys, we're going to Home Depot. See you on the next episode.
See ya.
Happy Sunday morning to you. We're going to get the remainder of the flooring up this morning and then start the wire brush routine to get the floors ready to have all the holes filled and have the rust inhibitor put down and then get the primer down. After that, we'll be able to get the floors in. Oh, if you're just starting on a bus project, this is my first one, so there's a lot. So don't plan on it being a quick process, just go at it. And we've decided that we're not going to let this drive us right now. We're not going to let it take time from other things. So we work on the bus when we have time to work on the bus, and if we need to work in the gardens or take care of chickens or do something else here around the farm, we take care of that. Our process is going to be a long process because we're going to do everything right. At the end of the day, we're going to have nearly 2,000 watts of solar, a minimum of 900 amp hours of batteries. We'll drive 12 volt lighting, a lot of 12 volt fans, that type of thing. We'll have some 110 outlets so that we can do blenders and microwaves and things like that. We'll put a mini split system on the bus. It's going to be both the heat pump and the air unit. probably 9,000 BTU. It'd be a small unit, but then again, we only have 20 foot of living space in the bus, 20 by 7.5. We're going to put a semi full-size refrigerator in. We'll have an oven and stovetop combo. We'll have a sink with water savers. We'll have a shower. We're kind of going to do a unique layout in this bus, whereas the bedroom will be over on that side towards the handicap door, and then in the opposite side on the back will be a small bathroom with a shower, kind of set up like an RV we saw. We follow a couple online. They were part of the van life for a long time, and now they're in Utah building a house. It's Trent and Allie. Looking them up, they're real interesting people. But they've got a little camper they're living in while they're building their house, and I kind of, if I can make that work, put the bed to the left and the bathroom to the right, we'll leave a lot more room up here for living space, and I'll not copying their floor design completely, but that back section I'm going to try to do. We'll raise the bed up high so we have plenty of storage underneath, because we won't have much of a garage on the back. So let's get the rest of these floors out of here so I can get started with the wire wheel on the grinder and getting these floors cleaned up. If we're as lucky as we have been, these have come up really easy. Except the parts right around the wheel wells, they came out in pieces. They were glued down really well. And I know I've mentioned it, and I'll mention it again, there's no plywood in this bus. It's straight down to the metal, but instead of a 16 gauge metal floor like you see in most buses, this is a 91 Wayne built bus. This is 1/4 inch steel plating, nearly 1/4 inch steel plating on the floors instead of just a 16 gauge metal. So it's very, very stout, very thick. There's no give on this. So let's get the floors out. I just take a crowbar and start an edge. Some of the buses that I've seen, and this may make some people upset that they come up this easy. And like that, you've got a section out. Very little glue left on the floor. Now, I threw the wheelchair lift out, unbolted that, and Tracy and I laid that down yesterday. And I mentioned it was a beast. I somehow got it stood back up this morning, and after thinking about it a little bit, I threw it out the back door. I tried to take video of it, but the camera started the video and then shut itself off as that thing was flat, so I don't have a video of it, but it went straight out the back door to the ground. This one's a little tougher, but it'll come out. Even if it comes out in pieces, I go until it quits. Here in the wheel wells, we had a lot of problem getting, just in these two sections here, a lot of adhesive still down. Down the center where the walkway was, it's not so bad, it should take up. Where we just took off in the back, you can see we have some rust areas. They're not bad, they're surface rust primarily. And because the steel is so thick on this bus, once we wire brush this and clean it up, there won't be any reason for concern. If I can show you the thickness of that steel is, I don't know, probably 3/16 to 1/4 inch thick. All right, once again, Going got the N95 mask on. I've got it crossed, sealed, and nothing's getting in this mask. There's gonna be a lot of dust created when we take the grinder to the floors. And when we start back here, we're gonna use the coarse brush on the heaviest stuff. Then we'll move to a fine brush to go over it, and then we'll sand it. So let's go back and I'll show you how we're gonna get started. Okay, we'll start back here in the back. we've got some pretty rough areas back here, particularly right behind that wheel well, so we'll start with it. Let me show you what we're going to do. This is one of our rougher spots. It actually has some flaking on it, so we'll just take the grinder with the coarse brush and cut that down. You can see that takes all the scale off, leaves it down to the metal. We'll take the fine brush and come back over this in a little bit. And then we'll sand everything before we put a rust inhibitor down. That metal's still really, really solid because, heck, it's 1/4 inch thick. Alright, let's get with this. Well, using a grinder with a aggressive wire brush, the stiff brush, it'll remove the glue, it'll remove the rust, but it is a time-consuming process. Plan on, I'm thinking now about 30 hours of man hours is what I'm going to have in prepping this floor. By the time I get the grinder work done, get the fine wire brush on it and hit a few spots and then sand it all to get it ready to prime and paint, it is probably about 30 hours. I will recommend, if you're going to be on your hands and knees with a grinder and a sander, get you a cheap set of knee pads. I'm using these. They came from the garden section, but they work really well because you're going to be down there a while. But it's looking good, the parts I've got. The whole idea behind it is when you use that grinder wheel and then sand it, you want every bit of the old adhesive off that floor. You want all of the scaly rust to be taken off. So I've got to call it quits for today, for at least now, and head over to the in-laws house. Tracy's going to meet me over there. It's Easter and there's a wasp on me. A wasp has no absolute concept of personal space. They don't really want to sting you. They don't know where they're headed. But I'm going to get cleaned up and head over there and do some Easter dinner with the family, and I'll come back and we'll end this video here, and I'll do some more work on the floors, and then in our next video when we check in next weekend, we'll have a lot of this done because I'll work on it in the evenings after work. Let me tell you something, it is rewarding. If you're thinking about getting into the schoolie world or you just bought a bus, all I can say is just do it, get started. Now here in a little bit we'll have a breakdown inside. I'll sit down in the office and we'll go over where we are on total so far on what money we've spent. So far it's not been an extraordinary amount. The biggest has been the bus that we paid $4,000 for, but it's in really good shape. I do like the way Wayne builds a bus because they're pretty much flat with a little bit of curve, and then they put the angle bracket in on the side, which gives you room to stand up clear to the edge. You're not just stuck in the middle of the bus. But like I said, let me get cleaned up and go do something else. I've been down on my hands and knees for a while and I'm tired. So we'll check y'all a little bit and I'll put the running total together and show you what we've got invested in the bus so far.